California. My name is Carol Malinsky. I am the Manager of Products and Services for SLI, and I will be hosting today's conversation. SLI is a training and development organization dedicated to teaching the implementation of servant leadership. In order to fully benefit from today's discussion, we will include an opportunity for you to ask questions toward the end of our time today. Here's how you can submit your questions. As you see on the right-hand side of your screen, there is an area to type in your questions. Please feel free to submit questions at any time during the seminar. We will get to as many questions as possible during the Q&A segment at the end of our session. Our speaker today is Art Garter, founder and CEO of Servant Leadership Institute and owner and CEO of Datron World Communication. Art and his wife Lori purchased Datron back in 2004 and transformed the culture there to a servant-led model. Art was so committed to servant leadership that he went on to create the Servant Leadership Institute as a training and development organization. Art, as you know, the Institute teaches that to transform your culture into one that is servant-led, there are 9 behaviors that are key to cultivating a servant-led environment. Our conversation today will be focused on the first behavior, the servant leadership behavior of serve first. Art, I'd like to begin by asking you to define what you believe the behavior of serve first looks like in a business environment.
Great, thank you, Carol, and hello to everyone who joined us today. We appreciate you investing your time with us, and our goal today is to serve you and add value to what you're doing. So, yeah, Carol, we'd love to talk about what serve looks like, and people talk about the normal definition of serving, and they think of ways that it's defined in the culture today, but in leadership, we actually want to turn things around, and we want to inspire people. We want to get them focused on the purpose of what we do and how we do it. We want to equip them to do things and be successful in the business and in life. If they invite us in, we can help them with there. We can assist in different ways in our thinking and in our hands. The mindset of serving is a different mindset, because in my particular case, I was raised in it. It was all about me, and I was to challenge authority and watch out for myself. And so the mindset is really different when you turn around and want to serve and focus on people. To be an encourager, to help people serve and be encouraged. We see this a lot in nonprofits, where you go help people who need food or need shelter, need some services, need some help. That's easy for people to understand. It is a little bit more of a challenge to take service into an organization, especially for a for-profit organization, and turn that thinking around in service. So, but it really is focusing on other people is really the primary goal, is think about others before yourself.
Right. You have so many wonderful stories, Art, leadership stories that I've heard over the years. Can you tell us one story from your experience that really illustrates that concept of serve first?
Sure. In areas where I mentor and help people understand their values, there's occasions where I need to mentor individuals about maybe not their behaviors not matching up with our values.
Right.
And we had one individual many years ago who I asked to come by my office about 4 o'clock one afternoon, and my intent was to talk about behavior and values of the company. And she showed up at my door with a box full of her personal belongings, and I asked her, "What's in the box?" She said, "Well, it's my personal belongings." And I said, "Well, you don't need your personal belongings for our discussion." She said, "Well, my previous company, when you were invited to see the CEO at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, your next stop was in the HR, and your next stop was in the parking lot." And so that's the type of thinking and experience people have had. And the one that I probably spend most of my time doing today is when I have to have a courageous conversation with an individual that, you can say conflict resolution, you can say I just have to have a courageous conversation. But when you have a conflict situation, the ultimate goal of a servant leader is to restore the relationship to what it once was, not to convince the person to do what you want them to do, but actually restore the relationship to where it once was. And that's a different way of thinking, just a big different way of thinking.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you think it takes to create this culture of service within a company?
It has to start with the leadership, and the leadership can be defined as leadership at the corporate level. It can be leadership in the management level. It could be leadership at the lead level, or even at the individual level. We believe that everyone is a leader. Everyone influences someone. So you've got to start with the individual and their behaviors. But for managers and leaders in the organization that have responsibility for others, we really try and encourage to turn the org chart upside down, the organizational chart, because that's the one where in traditional org structures, and you see it on your screen right now, the CEO managers sits on top of the pyramid. And, we challenge leaders that when you sit at the top of the pyramid like that, who do you serve? Because there's no one above you to serve. So you have to turn that upside down in order to have a group of people that you're going to serve. And so really flip that org chart upside down. It can be an org chart for a group, small within a department. It could be a department org chart. It could be an overall company org chart. But just start at where you are and where your influence is. Caring for people is people will look at a leader and watch them on a day-to-day, second-by-second basis. And people in the organization know the leader's heart because their heart is shown through their behaviors. And those two have to be linked together. They just have to be. Focusing on treating your employees with dignity and respect. It's all very easy to do and easy to say, but turning that into daily behaviors is a different challenge.
I think you may recall that one of the recurring themes we heard from employees at Datron as you worked to change that culture was, so-and-so doesn't even say hi to me in the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
And so just that concept alone of acknowledging people, even though you may not know them well, goes a long way, I think, toward changing the dynamic in an organization.
It absolutely does. The behavior of indifference towards individuals has a long-lasting effect on especially outgoing people. But to have a leader show indifference to those in the organization they're trying to serve has a lasting impact and really shows that you really don't care. And just saying, like you said, just saying hello in the morning. We're all rushed. We all need to get in. We need to check our to-do list. We need to check our calendars. And just that simple second of saying hi to someone, calling them by their first name, or asking them how their family's been doing, you don't have to get into a 30-minute conversation, but just that second or two where you say hi can really make a difference for an individual.
Right, and that really takes, as we've seen, a change in your thinking. In other words, approaching when you come into work every day, it's, I'm going to focus on the people first rather than maybe, checking that email right the second you get to your desk.
Right, the value you can create by spending 10 minutes walking around saying hi to people, good morning to people, rather than 10 minutes focused on your calendar and your to-do can make a world of difference. One of the things that I try and encourage folks to do is most of the people we talk to, they have a fairly large facility in their company. And I encourage leaders to park in the back of the building and walk through the building to your office instead of walking through the front door.
That's a great idea.
Because you have to go to your office anyway, so you might as well walk, say hi to people, and show that you care. Like just simple, which door do you walk in the building in?
Yeah.
And that's really a small change for a leader to make, but a big change in what people see in the organization.
Right. You know, Art, we hear over and over again that serving one another or servant leadership is a soft style of leadership, that we all get together and join hands around the campfire and, you know, sing Kumbaya. But the other thing people like to point out is because of that, you can't get real results for a company. What are your feelings about that?
Hogwash is my immediate response. Caring for other people, showing that you want to inspire them and equip them, taking action, investing your time, investing the company's money in training and behaviors has a payback to it. And once you care about individuals, the response you're going to get is beyond what you can even imagine, because people are going to respond. And some interesting, you know, we're going to get into engagement here in a minute, but there's some interesting statistics on highly engaged employees. They're actually about 480% more committed to the company's success once they're engaged.
Wow.
Once you're engaged with people, and that means you serve them and you have your heart with them, they're more engaged. They're going to take care of business in a way that you've never seen before. And that's where the results come. You're going to be able to do things quicker. It's not going to cost as much. You're going to have a higher level of trust with individuals. The one that I like is 250% of those people will be more likely to recommend improvements on how you do business. And listen to this one, 370% more likely to recommend the company as an employer to other people.
Wow.
Those are simple things that when you serve others, that's the reaction you get. And when you attract higher level people,
right,
and they're more committed, you're going to struggle to keep up with the performance and reaction you're going to get.
So I'm interested then in hearing you speak about what is that relationship then between serving our employees and getting results for the organization. So there's got to be some kind of balance going on there, right?
Any for-profit organization has to generate profits and cash to survive. Any nonprofit organization has to do the same thing. They have to have some type of income to do what they've been called to do and what they do best. So you have to have results. You can't serve people in one area and be a great steward in how you treat people and inspire them, and say, I'm not going to be a great steward in the financial responsibility and results of the company, because you're not going to be around. That's just not a model that's going to work. So you have to get results. Servant leadership has to have results. The amazing part is the results you'll obtain in a servant-led organization will be greater than the results you could get if you really didn't care about people. It was all about, you know, me as the owner or me as the CEO. You're going to get some very substantial different results. Servant leadership, you're asking people to behave differently, and managing and understanding and helping people change their behaviors is probably one of the most difficult things you will do as a leader, because everybody changes at a different pace.
Right.
Everybody has their idea of how they look at change. Some people, you talked about changing, they do not want to change.
Yeah.
They're ingrained. They want to hold fast.
Yeah.
They don't want to change. And so that's really the biggest challenge you're going to have is the human behavior change that needs to take place in order to get those results. It's actually tougher in a servant-led organization than it is in an organization that operates under power.
Well, I'll tell you, I in my own personal experience, I don't think I've ever been as challenged as I was working under a servant leadership model when I worked over at Datron. Really challenged. And when you think about it, if we really say that we care about our employees and we love them, then we should be challenging them to be better,
right?
And to do better things.
Exactly. A little history for everyone. Carol was with Datron before I started. I started with them in 1997. Carol was already here. And so we've been together for quite a long time. And She's been through the entire experience of the change from the old culture to the new culture with us, not only in just in the service side where she is now, but she's actually been in the production control, master scheduling part of our manufacturing business and been the center of everything that we've done at that point in time. And so she knows what it means to be responsible for making things happen every day as a manager, as well as helping people change in their behaviors to do things better. So she's got a lot of experience in that area. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, and you're right. I do, and enjoyed all of it for sure. We know that much has been written about servant leadership in theory, and that those theories are really valuable when we're working to change our mindset. But what about learning through doing? What would you suggest are some things that our leaders could do today to begin serving first?
The mindset of coming in the door in the morning and saying, who can I add value to today? Or who am I going to say hi to today? Maybe that relationship with that individual that you've been avoiding for the last 2 weeks, maybe that's the person you need to go say good morning to. Mm-hmm. And show that you're going to change your behavior before you ask them to change their behavior. So, and that has to be something you do every day. And so if you start that today, after the webinar, then make sure you do it tomorrow. Because if you only do it for a couple of days and then you go revert back to your old behaviors, people are going to say you're not serious about it. It's something you're going to try and do. So you have to be committed to doing something on a regular basis. Listening is a big part of this. You've got to listen to understand, and understand to the point where there's times where leaders just need to zip up their lips and listen. I've just started using saying that the more we think about how we're going to respond to a conversation, the less we're willing to listen to people. So if I'm thinking, if you're talking to me and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to say to you and respond to what you're saying, my ears have been turned off because I'm thinking about my response and I'm not seriously thinking about how you're going to, what you're saying to me.
Yeah, that's something I really caught in myself. I've always thought I was a great listener. And then I realized that I wasn't letting people finish their thought or their sentences because I was so anxious to jump in with what I thought was the solution or just, some additional information on the point.
Right.
And it dawned on me one day that wasn't listening.
It isn't. It really isn't, because we're more engaged in what our response is than really listening to understand what's being said. The one thing I would encourage everyone to do that you can do tomorrow is the amount of time that you put in managing your calendar, take some of that time and manage your commitments. So if you're, and I challenge you to manage your commitments and not your calendar. Because if you make a commitment to someone, you record it, you say, I've got to have it done in this date, you include it in either a calendar, a to-do list, or whatever it is, make sure you do that and manage those commitments and put in time in that area as much as you do in managing your calendar. Because the commitments are going to create more value for others than managing your calendar. People don't care how busy my calendar is. They don't really care. They care, Art, you made a commitment. You said you're going to have it done by this date. You said you're going to do this. It really doesn't matter how busy you are. Did you do what you say you were going to do? And that's really the key.
Yeah. Another one that I think people can start on immediately is, a lot of times we ask people to do things in an organization, and we don't tell them why. They have no idea what the higher purpose might be for that activity. And I think if we can start sharing that with our employees, I'm asking you to do this because it's going to have this kind of effect on the organization, improvement, whatever it may be, that people then start feeling like they're part of the team, part of what's going on.
Correct.
And that's definitely something that people can do right away.
They can. Most organizations have purpose, they have values, they have missions. Most groups should have something in that regard to help people understand why you do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
You help people. We were at a gas company last year, and we walked in, we got a safety manual. We were told where to go in case of an event. We didn't understand it until I walked into a training room and saw these great big gas tankers on the wall. They cared about my safety because they said if something happens, they deal in explosive materials.
Right.
This is where you need to go to get out of the building. All right? Everybody in our group got a pamphlet. Not just one pamphlet for the entire group. Everyone got an individual pamphlet.
Mm-hmm.
They're serious about safety in the organization. Why do they do that? They have stuff that explodes and goes boom.
Yeah.
So you have to be, all right? Make sure people understand why you do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
We help people, and that comes in various forms. It's different when you talk about a military application than you do in a service organization and teaching organization development,
right,
or in our workplace violence group and helping people deal with workplace violence, or helping the U.S. government in foreign countries. It's all different in applications. Helping people understand the purpose behind why you do what you do, and they get excited about it. They can move forward. And Carol, one of the things that we always challenged our people with in the radio business was the radios we manufacture are going to go on someone's on the back of a military individual. And in the countries we deal in, those individuals are going to be somewhere between 18 and 28 years old.
right.
And the question we always ask or challenge our employees is, would you put that radio on your son or daughter's back, all right, if they were in the service? And that's how we tie things together. We want to make sure what we sell and what we provide does the job and can focus on the mission.
Yeah.
And that's how we get people to really understand the purpose of what we do. So that's real important.
Yeah, certainly is. We'll leave this to our last topic that we want to go to discuss before we go to our questions. And that is, we hear so much about how employees today are disengaged in their jobs. Can you talk to us about that, Art?
There are some amazing studies and statistics being done in the last several years. This is results from a survey that was done in 2013 that found out that 7 of every 10 employees are disengaged or actively disengaged.
Wow.
Now, in our language at SLI, disengaged is people just are going through their job and they're not doing anything extra. The actively disengaged, we call them the little foxes. People who aren't on board with what you're trying to do and actually want to sabotage it.
Yeah.
And so your organization can't move forward. But listen to these percentages. 30% are engaged, 52% are disengaged, 18% are actively disengaged, trying to sink your boat in the organization.
That's amazing.
Those are amazing statistics, all right? There's another one I love with Reuters that shows the percentage of competence we have in institutions. And if you have a chance to look it up because it really is amazing, because the lowest one that we have is Congress, has less than a 10% approval rating from the people that were brought in that. We have this everywhere, and it's coming into our workplace. Here's an interesting statistic out of that same study. It says 35% of the U.S. workforce said they were willing to forego a substantial pay increase to see their direct supervisor fired.
I read this a week or so ago.
35%.
And it just blew me away.
Right. I just hope I'm not one of those in the fire. I don't want to be fired, okay? I hope I'm not in that category. But, we've been so focused on ourselves and so focused on getting results and people not caring how we get those results that we really need to change what we're doing. We really need to care about how we get results, because that's the sustainability that's going to happen in our organizations. But more importantly, we need to turn this disengagement. We need to turn this around.
Yeah.
And the only way I know how to do that is go serve people, go help people, go understand, go listen, and go from there. And so it's a big deal right now. And we think about if a manager is disengaged, how many of his employees or her employees are also disengaged? Now we're in the same, you're going to get the multiplier effect. If you have a good manager, they're going to create good people.
Right.
If you have a bad manager disengaged, they're going to create that same attitude in their organizations. And so when I think about some percentage of the management leaders fall in that disengagement as well, they're just going to create disengagement in the organization.
Right.
There's no way to get around that.
So that being said, why do you feel that serving first and servant leadership in general will increase employee engagement? Why do you feel that's the answer to that?
I believe the way to engage employees is not only to get to their head in training and understanding of what's going on in the company, but you also have to get to their hearts.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean in companies today? A lot of people are not working within their gifts. People who are not happy to come to work, who aren't thrilled about what they're doing, usually are not working in the areas that they're gifted in.
Uh-huh.
And in the U.S., our practice in the past has been, let's just keep promoting people until they fail.
Yeah.
That's really what we do with leaders. We really need to invest, develop, encourage, and bring that together. And I think once we have an engaged workforce coming to work, people are going to be happy to come to work. They're going to go, I want to go to work. I want to come work for Datron. I want to come to work for SLI. We had a saying when we were going through the implementation of servant leadership that my dream that the families of the people who worked at Datron, my dream was that when they heard the word Datron, they were thrilled because it didn't take their parents away from them. That Datron wasn't associated with a negative way of taking them away from them because we respected the families and put them first. And that's really where we need to go. We really need to get this balance, and I think the balance and the engagement and the change in the workforce, they're all going to add positive things here. But the engagement, we can do virtual things, we can do investments, we can do training. If the workforce isn't engaged with their head and their heart, then we're going to have some difficulties. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, some of those engagement statistics that you talked about were truly disturbing. But I would agree with you that with servant leadership, there is hope that we can turn that around and have fully engaged workforces. Well, we've reached a point in our session where we're going to go to our questions from our listeners. And the first question is, when did you first learn about servant leadership, and were you influenced by Robert Greenleaf?
My first exposure in challenging my leadership beliefs was done by Ken Blanchard in 2003. And he challenged me in my belief, not only in leadership, but also my belief in my faith. And he tied the two together. And so he really started that function. I started studying servant leadership, and obviously Greenleaf is one of the ones that has done a lot of write-ups and has a lot of influence. Started back in the 80s. I didn't find his information particularly really influential on my thinking because I'm a hands-on guy. I want to go implement.
Yeah, you're a boots on the ground.
I'm a boots on the ground type of guy, and so I can read, I can learn, but at some point I want to go make it happen. And so that's what got me started, and then some events in the business world just reinforced that I needed to change my leadership approach and beliefs, and I started to do that under Ken's guidance.
And I know that, just to interject a question that I think folks might be interested in, there were some other individuals who really influenced you in that journey. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
You want the positive influences, right? Not the negative ones?
Yeah,
the positive ones.
Let's focus on the positive influences.
The positive influences for me come from all over. They can come from the business world, the faith world. I've been fortunate enough to know Ken. John Maxwell's been a big influence on me, a good mentor. Stephen and Mark Covey, I heard his father talk about trust for the first time in a Greenleaf conference many years ago. That's where I got introduced to the concept of the speed of trust. He's been great. Cheryl at Popeyes has been great. We've got some silent influencers. I belong to a CEO group here in San Diego of Christian businessmen that lead different types of companies. Big influence on my life. It's like having a mini board that helps address things. My pastor, Tony Barron, Todd Hunter, all on the spiritual side have had an impact on me. So, it comes from various forms. And then my wife, Lori, has been probably one who has stood by me and told me in times that were frustrating, in times that I didn't think I was going to get through some things. She basically kept encouraging me and telling me, your time will come. Your time will come. You're doing some good things. And so that's a real positive one for me.
Sure,
yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And so based on what I just heard, there's one thing that I'd like to clarify for people, and that is the issue of, spirituality and servant leadership, or that it is, some people believe that it is a religious thing or religious leadership style. Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Sure. Just because I have faith, and that's what drives me, that we don't take faith into the workplace. We believe that anyone can work at Datron as long as they have a heart to help people, and that's what we look for first. And so we look for character, and then we look for competence. And it really is, faith is a personal thing, and it should remain personal. And I'm not a preacher. I'm not an evangelist. If I had that gift, I certainly wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And I keep telling people that. And it was a little bit of a challenge to get people to understand that my faith wasn't going to be the primary focus of everything we did in business.
Right.
But I think we've done a real good job in doing that because my behavior supports what I say. And that's really the positive thing there.
Yeah.
Hey,
let's go back to our listener question. As Art shared, creating a culture of service can be even from an individual level, not just the management structure. So here's the question. What is your perspective about personality types having more or less of a servant leadership potential? By type, I mean things like MBTI, DISC, DISC, etc. I was in a government structure that had a management type that they felt was more apt to be servant leaders.
Yeah, there's a lot in that question. It is an individual. It does have to start with the individual side of things. And the type of individual that you are, if you're classified into your aggressive type A, type B, whatever you want to have evaluate things. We used the PI when we first got started, and that basically helped us understand how people felt they were inside of them and how they felt they needed to be with people outside of them. And we helped them deal with that difference. The personality type does have a big play on it. If you have a power individual who just believes he's out for himself, that's going to be a bigger challenge to transform that thinking into a different mindset than it will be of someone who wants to get out of that arena of a company environment and do something different. So it is a challenge. Yeah.
Okay, our next question is, if servant leadership is so challenging, why do it?
Why do it? The world wants to change, and people are put in positions where they're more concerned about what people think about themselves than who they are inside. But if you look at all the statistics around us, the lack of influence in institutions, the engagement that we have, a lack of engagement with employees, everywhere we go, executives, middle managers, supervisors, employees, individuals, they all know that what we're doing today doesn't work. Just look around. It has to change. And it is a challenging change because change is not easy. And so I look at it as the world can be a better place if we had a lot more servant leaders in it.
Yeah.
Let's just start in Washington. A couple of questions for Washington. Can you imagine what Washington would be like if nobody in Washington cared who got the credit?
Right.
They took all the cameras out of Washington and nobody cared who got the credit. Would it be a better place? Right. I think probably 9 out of 10 people would say, yeah, it'd be a better place. Yeah.
Okay. What tools should we use to identify each other's gifts?
As a leader, what I look for is smiles. There are people in the organization who are never happy, and you got to figure out as a leader, is that unhappiness because they're really not doing what they love to do, or they have other challenges, etc. The word tools is real difficult to apply to this area of changing behaviors and a different mindset. And I wish there was a toolbox, a tool set that you could say, hey, grab this tool, buy it, use it, with the instructions, and everything's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's different.
Yeah.
And so the tools that work for one individual may not work for the next individual. But the tool to find out what their gifts are is to sit down and talk to people and ask them what really floats your boat, right? What floats your boat? What gets you excited? What would get you excited about coming to work? And usually when you open that conversation and people know you're real, you're going to find out things about that individual that you never knew before. And you're going to help them go find and work within those gifts once you've really listened to understand what they are.
Yeah, and build that relationship
so
that they're willing to tell you really what moves their heart.
Yep.
Have you seen any type of theme in the types of organizations that are especially open to servant leadership?
Most of the organizations have leaders who are not out in the public eye. They're humble, they're quiet, they go about their business and do things, and they're very, very quiet about it. Organizations who don't promote individual accomplishment above the team accomplishment. I love what John Wooden said. Individuals win trophies, but teams win championships.
Yeah.
And that's really the difference. Transparency, trust are all two characteristics of a good servant-led organization you're going to find in companies that really care about the people that have in them. So you've got to be open and transparent about what you're doing, and you have to be able to extend trust and create trust in that culture.
Well, I love this next question. And I think this will be our final question, Art, before we close. Since embracing servant leadership, has there been a situation you've encountered where servant leadership didn't work?
Well, that's interesting.
Great question.
The situations where it didn't work is usually around individuals who want to believe in servant leadership,
mm-hmm.
but can't change their behaviors. The behaviors are so ingrained in what they do that they can't change, and they don't believe they need to change. And what does that look like in the workplace? My background was all in finance and operations. We were in public companies, and the focus was on what are you going to generate revenue and profit for the quarter, and then what about the year? Those are, you've got to change your mindset and work away from those things. And the people who have been rewarded in those environments have been lifted up and are champions in that environment. They come into a servant-led organization and they don't understand why their leadership beliefs and practices aren't accepted in that organization. And dealing with that is, at times you just have to say, you know what, I want to invest in you, I want to help you, but the organization can't take the time that you need to change. You may need 5 years to change. We can't go 5 years, right? And the one story I do tell is leaders at a higher level, when they don't believe in what the company does, the damage that they will do. In one instance, our trust was so damaged by an individual in this position, mm-hmm. where we tried for 2 years to make it work. We had to cut it off and say we can't do this anymore. the trust, it took us 3 years in that part of the organization to get the trust back from the people because the damage was so great. And so there are times when servant leadership, you believe in investing in people, as long as you see a response to that, then you can go forward. But most of the time, you need two parties to be successful in helping people. And when that isn't, then you need to cut it and go forward. Yeah.
Okay. If we want to be respectful of people's time, so if you want to sign off, we understand that. But also, if you'd like to stick around and ask some more questions, we will be here and we'll go a little longer. So.
Let's take the next one. Yeah.
You mentioned one of Datron's values is that families come first. And by having this value, I just lost the screen here. Hold on a second. By having this value, there is more engagement by the employees and managers. Can you give examples of this at Datron?
Read that one for me again, would you please? I want to make sure.
You mentioned
Yep.
One of Datron's values is that families come first.
Yes.
And by having this value, there is more engagement by the employees and the managers. Can you give examples of this at Datron?
Sure. When families have medical emergencies or parents are needed to manage the unfolding of their daily lives, that's another definition of servant leadership. Our job is to help people in the unfolding of their life's events. And we believe the family comes before Datron. There isn't anybody in this company, including me, that needs to put our company, Datron, SLI, or BTI, above their family. The families come first. So we've had instances where people have been sick for long term, replaced hips, where the spouse had to stay home and take care of their spouse. We put computers in their home so they could work from home and be there to help them. We make sure that people stay focused, and sometimes we have to kick people out and say, no, you need to go take care of your family. You need to go do this. This is what's important. We had one of the supervisors on the floor who has been with us for almost 30 years, lost her husband 3 or 4 years ago. And she had to take care of him before he passed away on a fairly long-term basis. The employees here donated their PTO so she could get paid during that time frame after she used all her paid time off. People came to the forefront and said, hey, take my time because it's important for you to take care of your husband and be there for him at this point in time and not have to worry about money. Mm-hmm. And those are the things that in the stories that come out when you put families first that just, warm your heart. And there's a lot more like that. I could talk for the next 3 hours on the stories.
Our next question says, I'm the director of a servant leadership center in a private high school in Minnesota. What would you say are the essential topics or concepts that I should emphasize in the center?
Well, it's pretty cool to have a servant leadership center in a private high school. First, I commend you for having that. That's pretty cool. The essentials, and I'm still learning. I'm 61 years old. I'm from the old school, and I'm trying to understand the younger generation a lot more. I can give you some essential topics, and trust is at the top of the list. We're doing some work with some education districts here in San Diego. The trust level with kids that starts in elementary is fairly high. It goes down in middle school, and then it just takes a dive in high school. The trust is so low with kids in high school, it's unbelievable. We've got to get that trust level up because that's going to impact everything we do. I'd recommend you read Stephen Covey's book, The Speed of Trust, and really focus on that. And then the second thing I would encourage you to do, I'm not sure where you are age-wise, but understand that that generation is not going to be long-term with any certain employers. You're going to have maybe 2 to 3 years to impact that life. Put everything you've got 3 years you have it. Don't assume you're going to have it for 5 years, because you're not. But put everything you got into it for that time that you influence them. So don't hold back. Keep trying things, because that generation will talk back to you and tell you what works and what doesn't work. But trust is a big issue in high schools.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Our next question is, getting back to assessments, is there one specific inventory you use that measures servant leadership?
Yes, we do. It's our trust index. We ask every 6 months 3 questions of our employees and management team. With all the employees, we ask 2 questions. Do you trust your boss? And do you trust management? And the answers are simple yes or no. We don't ask for any dissertation or any writings. We said yes or no. And that index is what we use to indicate where we are in the trust in implementing servant leadership. Have we generated an environment that knows that we care about people? And when people know you care about them, they're going to trust you and extend that trust. The third question we ask within the management team is, do you trust each other? And what we found is, until the management team trusts each other, and that index is higher than the trust that's in the organization, you can't ask your employees to extend you trust if the management team doesn't trust each other. And those are the 2 measures that we use. And that's based off of Stephen M.R. Covey. In the study he did many years ago, he found that the first 2 questions we asked were the best indicator of how your organization was going to operate, were those 2 simple questions. And you can go further and you can ask people to give you comments and feedback on it. But if you don't have trust in the organization, you're not going to get the feedback.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, listeners. Those were great questions. Before we sign off, we want to call your attention to a couple of things. Please notice we've got a save the date here, and we're expanding our horizons this year, and we will be having, for the first time, a Servant Leadership Conference East Coast. So it will be in Orlando, Florida. The dates are November 9th to 10th in 2015. And then again, as we've done every year for the last 5 years, we'll have our annual conference on the West Coast as well, here in San Diego, California, and that will be March 7th and 8th. You're going to want to stay tuned for information on our next webinar, where we will discuss the next behavior of our 9, which is build trust in your organization. And we're happy to announce that we have a membership program, which gets you, if you enjoyed our content today, membership offers you access to more of our content, as well as discounts to events and publications. So see our website to register to become a member of SLI. Another way to stay connected with us is through social media. So we'd love to have you follow us. So Art, as we close today, do you have any final thoughts for us?
You know, I love what Nike says, you know, just do it. Start. Get going today. Do something different today, especially with those relationships that aren't where you want them to be. Go say hi to someone, you know, or say goodnight to them, or something. Do something different today and get started. Trust me, once you get started, then you're going to open up your mind to other behaviors, and it's going to become easier. But taking that step is what you really got to do. So don't wait. You know, take that step. Just take it. And you know, I'd like to end today with one challenge. Who are you going to serve today? And if you can't serve anybody today, who are you going to serve tomorrow morning in the first hour when you show up to work? Who are you going to go serve and say hi to, ask what you can do to help them, sit and listen to what they have to say about a problem that your organization's facing, and listening to understand, and then asking them, what do you think we ought to do? And you'll leave this week thoroughly motivated, because you're going to go home Friday night and you're going to go, wow, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So just get started.
Yeah.
Do something different tomorrow.
Yeah.
And trust me on that one. It will make a difference in your own life as well as the people around you.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. And it's SLI signing off.
Thank you, everyone. All right.